Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode 3, season 3 of BridgeAusTV. Today, I will be talking about the permanent residency visa options in Australia under the General Skilled Migration stream. I will talk about the eligibility criteria, the visa types, the application steps, and costs. All right, so what are the eligibility criteria? How do you become a permanent resident in Australia? Well, the very first requirement is that your occupation, your nominated occupation, should be in our skills occupation list. There are 3 kinds of lists. There's the MLTSSL, that's the medium to long-term strategic skills list. The second one is the short-term skills occupation list, STSOL, and the regional occupation list, ROL. So what that means is that in these 3 different kinds of lists, your occupation should be enlisted there. For example, you're a mechanical engineer, a registered nurse, a medical laboratory scientist. Now, the difference between this list is that if you are on the top list, which is the MLTSSL, you just have more visa options than the rest of the other lists. All right, so if you found your occupation on our skills list, the next thing that you need to look at would be your score from our migration points test. So you will be tested based on your age, education, work experience, and other things. So I will discuss each one of those and what's the score for each category. For age, if you are between 18 to 24 years old, you get 25 points. From 25 years old to 32, you get 30 points. So as you can see, the 30 points would be, that's the sweet spot from 25 years old to 32. When you turn 33 and before you become 40, it becomes 25 points again. All right, at 40, it's lesser, it's 15 points. If you notice, at 45, it's 0. Why? Because for our permanent residency visa under the General Skilled Migration stream, the maximum age is 44 years old. So what that means is that if you're 45, 50, you are not eligible. You cannot satisfy the criteria for this visa or for these visa classes. Moving on to the English language capability. So, there are tests, English tests. One example would be IELTS. There's PTE academic, and there's other kinds of tests that are acceptable by the Department of Home Affairs. Now, to get at least 10 points, it should be IELTS 7.0 in each band or PTE 65 in each band. So I'm stressing out, it's in each band. Why? Because if ever you get like 8.0 in writing, but you get 6.0 in listening, then the score is 6.0. Then you don't have points. Competent is 6.0 IELTS. Superior is 8.0 or its equivalent in PTE or other English tests. Employment. So this one, to claim for employment points, work experience points, your work experience should be highly related to your nominated occupation. Again, if you've chosen that your occupation is a chef or a cook or a nurse, then your work experience should be related to that. All right, that's what you can count. Um, Outside of Australia, it's scored this way. So if it's 3 years up to 5 years, that's 5 points. 5 years up to 8 years is 10 points, and over 8 years is 15 points. Now, there's a different calculation when the work experience is in Australia. So in Australia, if you have that work experience, at least 1 year gives you 5 points. All right, so 1 to 3 years is 5 points. 3 to 5 years gives you 10 points. Over 5 years gives you 15 points. For example, you have work experience in the Philippines for 2 years and then you have 1 year in Australia. Can you combine it? No. So there's different point system for that. So if it's overseas, it's just 2 years, then it's 0 because you haven't reached the 3 years. But in Australia, if you've done 1 year, then that's 5 points. You do not add them up. Now we go on to the qualifications, right? So if you have a bachelor's degree, that's 15 points. That's equivalent to the Australian qualification framework. So it can be that you finish a bachelor's degree in your home country, but that bachelor's degree doesn't really equate to a bachelor's degree in Australia, then that's not 15 points. Okay, so that you can find that out from the country education profiles, or you can ask your registered migration agent to check that for you. So bachelor's degree or master's degree, it would be the same, 15 points. If it's below that, it's a trade degree, it's 10 points. And if it's a doctorate degree, it's 20 points. Now, some of you might have studied in Australia already. So if you studied for 2 years and that studies led to an award, then that's 5 points. All right, so you can also claim based on your relationship status. So if you're single, that's 10 points. Now, if you have a de facto partner or a spouse who's an Australian permanent resident or an Australian citizen, that's also 10 points. If your partner or spouse has at least PTE 50 or IELTS 6.0 in each band, then you can also claim 5 points. You can also claim another 5 points if your partner or spouse has a positive skills assessment in a role in our skills list. All right, so now I am moving to the different visa types, visa categories that you may be eligible for. All right, in this table, you can see there are 3 visa subclasses. You will see the 189 visa, that's the skilled independent visa. The next one is the 190, skilled nominated visa. And the third one is the skilled work regional provisional visa. So in the table, I have put in here the different requirements for each visa subclass. So the first row, you will see what skills list is applicable to the visa subclass. All right. So for the 189, your role should be on the MLTSSL. So for the 190, your occupation should either be in the MLTSSL or on the STSOL. Now for the 491 visa, you can be on the MLTSSL, STSOL, or the ROL, the regional occupation list. In terms of the age requirement, again, you should be below 45 years old. That's the last chance to apply. Of course, you can apply when you're younger than that. For the English language capability, really the English language capability requirement is just a 6.0 in IELTS or PTE 50. But that doesn't give you any points. So if you want to claim points, it should be at least IELTS 7.0 in each band or PTE 65. Qualification requirement would depend on your role. Okay, say for example, a registered nurse, they should have at least a bachelor's degree. For an automotive mechanic, you should have at least Cert 4. So there's different qualification requirements per nominated occupation. the minimum points requirement is at least 65 points. Okay, so for the 189, it should be higher. When I say minimum, it's 65. You can apply, but it's not sure when you can get invited. Okay, because currently people are getting invited at 90 points. It can become higher. All right, the next column would be sponsorship. So do you need a sponsorship or not? For the 189, that's why it's called the independent, skilled independent. You don't need a sponsorship from a state. Okay. The 190, it requires a state sponsorship. 491, it requires a sponsorship from the state or from a relative. You know, if you have a brother here, a mother here, a cousin here, and your role is in MLTSSL, then you can claim additional 15 points if they're willing to sponsor you. All right, now we move on to the steps. So what are the steps of application? PR visa has 3 major steps. All right, so the first step would be the skills assessment. This is the part where Australia is confirming your role. Say, for example, again, you're an ICT business analyst, then there's a body for that who would check your skill sets and your qualification. That's Australian Computer Society. So every role would have an assessing body. For cooks and chefs, it's TRA, Trade Recognition Australia. So that's the first step. You have to pass that first. And that process itself can take maybe 1 to 3 months, again, depending on the assessing body. So that's the first step. Once it has been satisfied, then once you have the positive skills assessment, then the next step would be to apply for an EOI. EOI is an expression of interest. So this is where you tell the department that, hey, I'd like to apply for a PR visa. And then from this point, you know, you should have your IELTS ready, you should have the skills assessment ready, and you should have at least 65 points. So when you do that, EOI, it's there's no guarantee that you'll get invited. So it's either, if it's 189, you wait to be invited to apply for the visa. If it's 190 or 491, you'd have to apply for the state sponsorship. If it's 491 relative sponsored, you have to wait until you get an invite from Skill Select. Okay, so EOI, and then state sponsorship, right? So there's the EOI. I told you a while ago that not all visas would require state sponsorship. So if it's a 190 or 491 state sponsorship stream, then you'll have to apply for state sponsorship. So if you get approved with that, then you get an invitation to apply for your visa, right? So the third step would be the visa application. The second step, the EOI, it can take about, maybe 6 months to 2 years because you really don't know when you get invited. State sponsorship can also take the same time. Depends on depends on the rules of the state and when they're happy to invite you. Okay, there's always no guarantee. And then the third step, visa application. For the visa application, once you lodged it, the processing time can be anytime between 6 to 12 months. So this changes, it changes, depends when you lodged it, depends on how much the department is processing and how much of visas have they already approved, because there's a budget every year. For the PR visa application prices, I'll just give you an approximate price because it changes all the time. For the primary applicant, it's about $4,000, $4,000 plus. For the spouse or partner of the primary applicant, it's $2,000 plus, and for the child, it's $1,000 plus. This is based on a combined application. Okay, so when you see the price, the exact price, there's also a credit card surcharge that you have to add with that. So I have given you an overview of how to apply for a permanent residency visa under the general skilled migration stream. Again, this is just general information. But if you want specific advice on your application, I suggest that you book in a consultation with me so we can discuss your case thoroughly and then provide you with options. If you want to check if you're eligible to migrate in Australia, please visit our website www.bridgeaus.com.au for a free initial assessment.